class or the prerequisite math class in what we called the Red Hawk Learning Center. Someone crossed out Red Hawk Learning Center and said Schmidt Hall, that is the Red Hawk Learning Center. It's a nice, pretty name for you're being taught by computers. So you might not realize some of the little etiquette things, and I'm actually a professor. I'm not Miss. Some of you are calling me Miss. I prefer Dr. T, and I want to tell you why. I am a professor of mathematics. I do have my PhD from Georgia Tech a long time ago, and I don't want to tell you when. I want to keep that a secret. But I taught at West Point for a number of years after I finished at Georgia Tech, and at West Point, all the cadets have to call you Dr. Thomas, and I have to call them only by their last name. So cadet so-and-so, for example, it's very, very formal. And it makes it very hard for me to teach. You can see that I'm an informal kind of professor, and I develop bonds with my students, and it's a little bit, kind of put a wall between us. But I had a wonderful student in my second year of teaching there. His name is Sudarsky, and he gave every single one of the cadets a nickname. So somebody with red hair was named Red, and I became Dr. T. Unfortunately, this particular student passed away during West Point itself. He had something wrong with his heart, and he just one day got up and he collapsed. So from then on, I've adopted Dr. T as my name. I've never forgotten him. And so that's why I prefer Dr. T, just in remembrance of him. But you may call me Professor Thomas. You may call me Dr. Thomas. Either one of those two, or just Professor. But please, Miss, I am actually even married, but I'm Mrs. Hariharan. So I decided not to take Hariharan as my last name. So the second question many of you had is, am I Desi? And I am. So there's a lot of students here from the subcontinent. Yes, I am. I'm Malu. And for those of you who don't know that, be thankful what that is. You're lucky. You don't want to know. So how does everything work? In-class assignments, let's start with those. In-class assignments are usually a given 100%. It should be a way to boost your grade. The minimum is that you have to follow the directions. So in the class, the last time we were supposed to collect 3 measurements and then have the ratios on them, and then have the conclusion to the story, which was that all of those ratios were very close to pi. It was the justification, it was an experiment that we ran in class to make you understand why we're using radians. And I went through some length of trying to show you hands-on why we're using radians. And then I tried to address the question also of why do you use degrees then in other classes? So I actually had a physics professor sit down and explain to you why we use degrees in another class. So I want all that internalized, because math is more than a bunch of rules. You're coming here, you're paying for a class. It's a pain to get here. Again, I parked up in the deck. I found a parking spot, thankfully. It's hard to get here. You're already in this really warm room. You might as well learn something that's useful past this class. So understanding why we're doing certain things is important to me. And it might not be important to you now, but 2 years down the line, when you're sitting in physical chemistry or some other class, I want you guys to be the best students in the class, because you know what you're doing. Because the math that you learned, you really retained it. And so little things like understanding why we use degrees sometimes and why we use radians are pretty important, because they can trip you up. And they can also make it so that you're memorizing things for this class without really understanding why. By the time you leave this class, you won't remember, and that's kind of a waste of your time. So I want to make sure everything sticks as well as it possibly can. Then third thing is the videos. So we have a playlist where everything that we covered in class is not just one big, huge streaming video. You see that everything's split up by a little title, so you know exactly what is on those videos. The only thing that I have missing on these first set of videos is the date. And so from now on, I'm going to put the date and the order. This is video number 1, video number 2 for that day of class, so you can go back to that date and look up something. But you can see that one of those videos, was what was going to be on the quiz for Monday. So I had so many emails flying at me over the weekend. What's going to be on the quiz? even yesterday, what's going to be on the quiz? It's right here. I don't even remember what's going to be on the quiz. It's not, it's, you know, I have a lot of stuff going on just like you do too. So if I get a text from you and I'm at swimming practice with 3 kids, I'm not probably going to remember what was on the quiz either. So your best bet is just to go up and look at that video and see what was on the quiz. And I'll try to make sure that there's always a video that tells you what's going to be on the quiz. Because, well, let's be honest, while you're sitting here, you're not going to sit here and just internalize everything that I'm saying. So that's why we have a recording of it, so we can go back and look at it when it's important to us. Also, you'll find that every one of the problems that I do, that I require you to do, there'll be a sample problem online. So that instead of you taking notes from me in class, then going home with those notes, which may have some of your own shorthand in it, you'll actually see the video where you can stop the video and pause it so you can actually practice doing whatever you're doing. The problems that you get on WebAssign will have this, it's the same identical problem with some numbers changed. So it's an exact sample that you can go through, and I also put everything step by step. So that way, if you have a question, you can say, look, I was looking here at step 2 and you really confused me. And that also gives me feedback and says, you know, yeah, I have to put in some more detail into what I'm explaining. So that it's a really useful thing. And initially I did this because I was away sometimes, and I used to do videos for when I'm away, but I thought, hey, I should do this all the time. And actually it's really useful to keep a record of what we have. Are there any questions about any of that? All right, so no matter what, I mean, hey, this is what's important, right? I should see at least 39 views of what's gonna be on the quiz. Not 8, I should see 39.